Welcome back to the Holistic Homes Podcast. I'm Christine, licensed general contractor and holistic construction consultant nationwide. And today's episode is going to get a little bit into the weeds, but I promise I'll steer you in the right direction. This is all about contractor selection, but not just hiring a contractor. I need you to understand better the pros and cons to really what it means when you're hiring different types of contractors. Not all of them are the same, and some of them are using terms that might be throwing you off a little bit. So I'm going to help really clear the air so that you are making an informed decision when you're having these conversations, or what I call them also interviews of contractors. So I want to break a couple of these terms down and help you see pros and cons of different types of contractors. The term general contractor is pretty vague, but some contractors are doing things different than others. So I'm going to break down some terms. We'll start there. So there's going to be, in the general construction space, this is all residential construction. First off is going to be a design build contractor. You've heard me talk about this before. A design build contractor or a design build firm is a construction company that is putting all of the design and architecture and construction under one umbrella. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily doing all of that work in-house, but they are essentially creating like a one-stop shop. So you go to a particular contractor and they'll typically have the term design build within their name. You go to one contractor and you start there. And they are going to help guide you in the floor plans and the elevations. They might even have an interior design team. They may have an in-house draftsman, or they may be partnered with like a local architecture firm. Some pros and cons. Some really good pros to working with a design build contractor from the beginning is it often really saves on cost. So it's going to save on the like design development and interior design and really the build out of the design elements of your project. It's usually a good like 25% plus savings in working with a design firm, a design builder. Couple of things is that yes, it's great to have all of that under one umbrella, but there's also some pretty big cons to working with a potential design build contractor. And a caveat to this is that our construction firm here in Southern California, we are a design build construction company, and I'll explain why we operate that way at the end. But a design build construction company, some of the bigger cons or downsides that I see to that is that because it's all under this nice umbrella, is that I so often see that the architectural plans and real design development of the project is very underwhelming in the level of detail. And the reason behind that is because the contractor, they know what they're going to build. But if you are expecting a different level of detail, or if you are saying, hey, I want to like beef things up or do better building details than on your standard projects, the only way to communicate that is on your plans, like on your construction documents. And so it's important for you to understand what you are going to get and what you are not going to get when you work with a design build firm. The other piece to this that is kind of an unspoken downside is that if you go to a design build firm and say, I'm just starting out, I've got nothing, I just have this piece of land and we need to start, you are sometimes already tied to that builder, like to do the actual construction. So it's not typically commonplace to go to those construction companies, work with them on the design, and then bid out the project to multiple other contractors and then pick your contractor. That's not typically the arrangement there. Now, if you are working on the design with this design build firm and you feel like, hey, this isn't going so well. The design looks great, but I'm not sure if I want to proceed with them on the construction side. You are not likely going to be able to take those plans and all that development that you've made on the floor plans and the elevations. You're not likely to be able to take that information and go and start working with another architectural firm and then another contractor. So read your contract really carefully, because I have seen that occur where people have worked with design build firms. They've gotten all the way through the design development and they say, hey, I don't want to proceed. And those documents are not the homeowner's documents. They stay with that contractor. So just really talk through some of those pros and cons. Now, the reason that our firm is a design build firm when we do construction projects here locally is because no one else is designing to the level of standard that we are. That is just what's happening here, at least in our region, is that we know that we have to have full control of the project from the beginning. Now, we work with an outside architectural firm that is doing a lot of our architectural details, but we know that for a successful project, we need to have full control, start to finish. Now, we have worked with other architectural plans, but we still need to further develop them in almost all instances, which is why we have always started projects off from the design point and then carried it all the way through construction. So that's a bit about why we operate in that way, but I know that that may not be the case for all design build contractors. Okay, so next on the list, we've got our design build contractor. Next type of contractor is going to be a spec build contractor. This is short for speculative, which means this contractor is building homes that is going to be sold. And this is usually just a handful of homes. Like they are building a home and then it's getting sold to, maybe somebody during the build process typically, or it gets put on the market and it gets sold to a family. This is a contractor who is I would say a little bit of a step up from a production builder, which I'll share about that next. But a spec build contractor, you have to understand that the focus most of the time are the numbers. So this is not a custom build. This is a home built for an unknown family. And so a lot of the detailing is with price and profit in mind. That's just the reality. So we have had instances when homeowners have reached out to us and they are working with a spec contractor, and they are sometimes during construction. They've already got foundation and framing is in place, and they ask how we can help in their project. And I have to share with them that at that point, there's not much of meaningful significance that can be altered in a project. You already have structural plans, architectural plans, a mechanical plan, hopefully, maybe, I don't know. But you already have all of those details on your plans, and that contractor has already crunched the numbers and given you a purchase price or a bid for that project. And it's really hard to change the structure and really change the exterior and how the windows are being flashed, all of those big things. It's really challenging to do that after construction has begun. But as a spec contractor, the truth is they are building for profit. There's absolutely some better spec build contractors than others. There are some that are using better materials, absolutely, but they are not building with an end user in mind. Like they are building to put it on the market to sell it. So that is a spec contractor. There are some spec contractors who also do custom builds, but those are like two different divisions within their company. Okay, so we have the spec build contractor, and then next, what on earth is a production build contractor? This is probably more common than you might think, but a production contractor is a contractor who is building out entire communities. Like where the spec build contractor is building maybe 1 to couple of homes here and there, a production builder is in charge with the entire community. Like they get a big piece of dirt and they start developing. So they have the guard at the gate sometimes, or they have like a community pool and amenities and all of these things. And they are building all of the homes in the community. And there's a sales office, and you go into the sales office and say, I like lot number X, Y, Z, and I want to purchase that lot. That is great for a homeowner that wants to be completely like hands off because they are running the show. Now, they may have a sales office and the design office next door, you get to pick the tile and carpet and the paint color and hardware. You're not typically able to make any modifications to the construction of the home. And in some instances, I have seen contracts for production homes that do not even allow the homeowner to do any inspections of their own, like no third-party inspections, no home inspections. And that's something you need to be aware of, is what you can and can't alter or what you can have control of during the construction of the home. Because the truth is that home, as it is being built, it is not your home. In most instances, it's not your home until escrow closes and there's changing of hands. And so you may not ultimately be the buyer of that home. You've placed a deposit on purchasing that home, but you're not typically going to be able to go in there and change the waterproofing method around the exterior of the home, or beef up window flashing. Highly unlikely that you'll be able to like coordinate third-party inspections, which is something huge that we do on all of our consulting projects. But you just need to know the limitations in what you will get with a production build. Also, the name of the game for a production builder is speed and profit. That is what their focus is, because they are building homes in most instances like 4 to 6 months. It goes from dirt to you get the keys to your home. They go really, really fast, and they are buying materials in bulk. Sometimes inspection and quality control can be a little lackluster and not great, but you don't get a ton of control. And it's highly unlikely that you're able to come in and make some like meaningful changes to that home before it changes over to your hands. If you take a look on social media, you can find a couple of bad apples out there that are doing some really poor quality production builds. And there's a reason that production builds have a bad reputation, because they go really fast. There's not enough oversight and quality control, and they are often using bare minimum standards of home building, just standard building codes. But there's a little bit of a glimmer in that I am seeing a bit of a change in the way that they are approaching production homes. And unfortunately, often the driver for change in like the production home build, or like these big national builders, unfortunately, typically the driver is litigation, meaning they've had enough lawsuits that they are finally waking up and saying, hey, we should do something about all of the water intrusion that's happening in our homes, or we should finally do something about the foundation issues that we're having. And that's just typically what really hurts them the most, is in their pocket. Is if they are getting sued enough times over the same issues, they're finally going to wake up. But if they are going to change course and build better quality homes, I'm all for it. Okay, so then from spec builds to production builds, then we can get into what is a semi-custom builder. A semi-custom builder, they are typically building homes, as the name implies, with some customization that can be taking place. A semi-custom builder is usually starting with a handful of floor plans, meaning here's 5 or 6 floor plans and elevations. They've all got a few different aesthetics. Take your pick, and then we'll build that for you. And you can customize the interior paints and finishes and all of the pretty stuff, that's usually a semi-custom builder. You get a little bit of control, but I find you typically don't get much control over the enclosure, which I refer to as the big meat and potatoes of how this home is going to actually manage water and not, have water damage issues on the interior. So that's a semi-custom builder. Name is pretty indicative of the type of work they're doing. And then you can get into full custom builds. This is the sweet spot. And this is where a lot of the healthy home building practices are going to be taking place. That is why we have made it a point to share that we work on custom new builds, because we want for our time in your project and on your team to make a big, big impact. And if we are brought onto a team, which we're not because we don't take these types of projects on, but if we are on a team where it's a production build, we are going to come up with some incredible strategies and concepts, but you're not going to be able to implement them. You are going to be just halted on what you can and can't do. They are likely not even going to allow a consultant onto your team. So on the custom side, that starts with an architecture team, and the contractor does get looped into that project, but all of the strategy and everything that we're working through happens in that architectural stage. Then you also get into the analysis stage, and we do in-house analysis on building enclosures, and we just take care of the project from start to finish, from design development through construction documents, all throughout construction. That is how you have full control, full management of the oversight and third-party observations. And it is an entire collaborative process. And it is a home designed and built with you in mind. It is not just an unknown end user. Each of the decisions along the way are selected based off of your expectations and what you are expecting come move-in day. That is what a custom home should and is going to provide for you, is a full custom experience where you get to have really meaningful input into how that home is going to be built and designed and all of the details. So that's a custom home builder. Now there's one builder that we haven't talked about, but is coming up more and more and more and more often. Just had a conversation yesterday about this type of builder. And it might fall into some of these other categories. Many builders do a couple of these categories. But this is the type of builder that is going to be tied to a piece of land, meaning that land is becoming more and more rare. Even here in Southern California, there's almost no such thing as undeveloped land. But in some areas, there will be a beautiful piece of land within a community. And if you purchase that piece of land, you are tied and must use that builder. Now, this might fall again into any of these other categories. It might very much well be a spec builder, or it could be a production builder. But if you fall in love with a piece of land, great. The builder owns that land. And if you want to purchase that land and build on it, you must use that builder. That is something you need to be very aware of. And I don't see enough vetting and due diligence during that process. Oftentimes, if you fall in love with a piece of land, the focus is on doing the due diligence on the piece of land, doing the soils report and evaluating soils conditions and surveys. But you need to know you're locked in. You do not get to pick a different builder to build that home. The builder also knows that. So if you purchase that piece of land and you say, great, we're going to start developing our plans and we're going to start working on the floor plans and the elevations and the architectural details and go this seemingly custom build route, are you really getting a custom build? Because that builder knows that you cannot go price out that project to other builders. I'm making some broad assumptions. But this is typically the scenario that I see. So when you purchase that piece of land, that builder still has quite a bit of control on the detailing, and in some cases, the pricing of the project as well. Because again, you're tied to that builder. You don't get to shop around for other contractors. So you need to really understand what you're getting. And also, what is the quality work of that contractor? I see just about every single time they say, yes, 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 we'll do whatever you want. Sure, you can, have full control over the entire, project. I'm using that term loosely, but yes, whatever you want to implement, we can, make that a part of the project. But have they done that before? Have they used the type of building materials that you want to use? Have they done a high performance build? Have they done a project that really prioritizes like mold avoidance? Have they done any of these things that you are expecting or might even like be a non-negotiable for your project? Have they done any of that? Because once you buy that piece of land, that is your builder. That's what you get. And if you have not vetted that builder, even more so than you have vetted the piece of land, you might have an unpleasant experience throughout the build process. So I see that more common than almost like any of these other types of builders. I would say spec builders are pretty common, but buying the piece of land that is tied to the builder is becoming pretty common. In a lot of the up and coming areas, I see it a ton in Tennessee, Idaho, a lot in Texas, Florida. I mean, all of these areas that have good land that people want to build homes on, they're typically tied to a builder, and you need to know everything you can about the quality of that builder's work and what you have control over in changing on changing and adding to, and making better decisions before you get locked in. So I've heard of some not so great experiences. Usually when I hear about experiences that didn't go well, it's at the end of the project and they're coming to me way after the fact, but saying, hey, this didn't go well. And we're either like, wanting to do a custom new build because we've already had experience with these other types of builders, and we know that we want to go the custom new build route. So that's usually when I start to hear about some of these experiences. And I can tell you that doing a custom new build often leads to the most pleasant and best outcomes. That is what we see on the consulting side, because it is your home. You are paying the bill to have this built, and it makes absolute sense that you should have rightfully a lot of meaningful input. So I wanted to share with you today what all of these different builder terms mean. I hope that you can use this information to ask more questions, like what is it that you are getting? What can you have control over and input on? What is like, no way, this isn't changing, so that you know what you're getting into on the home building side and construction side. If you're wanting more guidance in this, we have developed and created an incredible resource just recently. We launched the Holistic Homes Directory, and this is intended to pair like-minded contractors with homeowners, and where you can actually have these conversations and understand what type of builder you could potentially be connected with and really be responsible for building your home. So the link to the directory is down in the description. I hope you check it out. Look to see if there is a builder or an architect in your area that could be better paired with you, instead of just navigating out there all by yourself with no guidance. So check out the directory, and then I encourage you to ask questions, have these conversations about what you can and maybe won't have any input on. And so I thank you so much for being here. Check out the links below, and I will see you on the next episode.